Hi you guys, it's Amanda with Healthy House on the Block, and I am here with another blog post and another video to talk to you about different toxins and solutions for your healthy house. So creating a healthy house is all about making intentional changes, maybe swapping out a few products, changing some habits to reduce toxins and then bring in healthier materials and healthier options that are going to promote a healthy space that can support a healthy immune system. So today we are talking about plywood, specifically plywood in your home. Our homes generally are built with a lot of plywood. Anything from underneath our flooring is going to be plywood to in our attic. The sheathing that's beneath our shingles is going to be plywood. A lot of furniture contains plywood, and then just different things within our house contain woods that are manufactured and man-made. So today we're going to go through all of the toxins that are in plywood and why this makes a big difference in your home, and then give you some solutions whether you want to seal the plywood so that the toxins are not off-gassing, whether you want to replace some parts of the plywood if you're doing like a remodel or a home project or a furniture redo or something like that. These are going to be good options for you. So first let's talk about why it makes a big difference in our homes. Generally, plywood, and I will go through the health effects even more, contains a very strong adhesive. And what it does is it adheres all of the layers in the plywood together through a process where glue is applied to each layer. And the glue has to be very, very strong because the goal of plywood is to make a light product that is very strong and can withstand a lot of different elements, moisture, and it's not going to warp and it's not going to break. So the adhesive that they use a lot of times contains formaldehyde and other VOCs to make it such a strong solvent. And this is why we want to try to avoid it in our homes. And so when we look at like getting new furniture, when you're looking at doing a home project, a renovation, trying to avoid plywood that contains formaldehyde glue is going to be the best option to keep your space safe, to keep your space healthy, to keep yourself free of formaldehyde and VOCs. And so this process has the glue that's in the formaldehyde. And when we talk about our homes and we start to think about it could be the entire subfloor structure in your home, there's a lot of plywood. That's a large surface area, and that's a space that can off-gas up and downstairs if you have a finished basement where you and your family like to spend time, or you have a bedroom in the basement. Generally, there's a large quantity of formaldehyde being off-gassed in our homes due to the plywood. So today we're going to go through and talk about different solutions. I have some really great products that you can seal up plywood with, and so what it does is it contains the VOCs within the plywood structure and does not allow them to off-gas, because one thing we know about formaldehyde and VOCs is that they continue to off-gas for the life of the material or the product. We know that it never stops off-gassing. So if your home is even older and the plywood has been there for a long time, you might think, oh, it's fine, the glue is, long dried and there's no problem with it. That's not necessarily the case. And so just because we have so much of this formaldehyde toxin in our home within plywood, that's why I wanted to address plywood today. So if you are doing a home remodel, doing a project, I would encourage you to check out some of the products that I'm going to share with you, and I have them linked in the blog post that's below. These are products that they are plywood, but they're made with solvents that do not contain VOCs. They're made with adhesives that do not contain formaldehyde, and their process is a little bit different to make the product. A lot of times the strength of the product is comparable, pricing is comparable, And so it's just a better option. A lot of times we just don't know it's a better option. It might be something that you need to present to like a contractor who's doing work in your home, because it's just not a widely known option. So let's go through the slides and let's find out about plywood. If you have any questions at the end of it, I will give you some ways to contact me. So plywood, toxins, and then the alternatives. This is all about making smarter choices within our building materials. So plywood is a really common and widely used material when it comes to our home's materials and our furniture. The wood itself usually is not an issue, but a lot of the adhesives that we use have VOCs, and they're off-gassing in our homes. And because we have so much plywood in our homes, this is kind of why we want to take a look at this building material and make a smarter choice. A lot of times there are plenty of options out there, but contractors, homeowners, we just don't know about them because they're not as widely used. So let's dive in. So first, what is plywood made of? Plywood is man-made. It's engineered in factories. It's often made up of very thin sheets of like peeled wood that has been debarked. The thin veneer sheets are then adhered together with a very strong adhesive. Once they're bound together with the adhesive, it kind of forms like a composite material, making it a really strong option, but lightweight. It is usually stronger than like particle board and chipboard, but lighter than solid wood. Once the panels are bonded together with adhesive, they usually do this in like odd numbers so that it also doesn't warp, which is another benefit of this product. There are also different adhesives that are used. A lot of them are toxic. So the wood itself poses very little in terms of health concerns, but the plywood adhesive itself is what comes into play when we talk about toxins. So it's often made up of formaldehyde, polyvinyl acetate, and phenyl glues. So we want to avoid these, and we're going to talk about why. So the toxins present in plywood, you'll probably recognize some of these. Formaldehyde is the biggest one. Formaldehyde has been shown to have a number of health risks, including an increased risk of cancer, which I have all of these studies linked in this week's blog post, which is in the post or in this video description if you're looking for it. One of the big studies discusses how our household concentrations of formaldehyde are contributing to skin sensitization, eye and respiratory irritation, an increased risk of cancer, like we already talked about. Another study links formaldehyde to headaches, dizziness, an inability to concentrate, and then sleep disturbances as well. So it's being off-gassed all the time, and it's definitely affecting the way that we live and the way that we feel. So the second toxin is polyvinyl acetate. This has been listed as like a hazardous substance. It's extremely flammable and it's not water soluble, which is exactly why they use it, and it makes a great adhesive. However, the chemical toxin contributes to both long-term and short-term toxicity in humans. I've linked a study that shows it is carcinogenic in some instances and can cause liver disturbances and irritation in other instances. And then the last toxin that we're going to talk about is phenyl resin. It contains a type of formaldehyde in the adhesive that is used with this. A study that I have linked in my blog post talks specifically about how plywood and the phenyl formaldehyde resin glue used in products has a VOC, or a volatile organic compound, that contributes to the irritation of skin and then the irritation of airways. And I think I want to talk about how our bodies react to this. So a large study that I'm linking shares that the characteristics of formaldehyde, which is a toxin in our indoor environment, is quickly absorbed into our bodies through our skin and then through our airways. The same study references that the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified formaldehyde as a carcinogen to humans, just even due to home exposures, not necessarily someone who's working with formaldehyde. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. But now let's talk about some better options, some alternatives, some things you can do to reduce the toxins in your home when it comes to plywood and formaldehyde. So some healthier alternatives to toxic plywood. The first is Soy Strong Maple Plywood. This is a brand. It's carried at Lowe's, so you can just go, you can get it. It's not something you have to special order. It is made with a soy-based glue rather than a formaldehyde glue. It's a really great plywood alternative that has a similar like structure and performance to other plywoods. It's also harvested from sustainable resources and contains no added formaldehyde at any point in the manufacturing process. The second one that I really like is Pure Bond Birch Plywood. This is carried at Home Depot, and I have a link to how you can order it from Home Depot's website on the blog post. It's a really good alternative for a project if you're looking to complete like a small project or a home improvement. They've replaced the formaldehyde again with a soy-based adhesive, which is similar in performance, but it doesn't contain any of the chemicals present in typical adhesives. The other positive benefit for Pure Bond is that it's extremely close in cost to regular plywood. So it's really easy to stay within your budget and not go over just because you're trying to choose a healthier option, which oftentimes is the case. And then the last thing that would be just kind of an alternative. It's not even necessarily comparable. You could use structural cement sheathing boards. So this is a good option, but it's not necessarily usable in all applications. It's best for like new construction or doing an addition, and you have to have the proper structural support behind it. So you'd have to talk to your contractor. But the boards are made of non-combustible concrete, and so it offers a really good fireproof alternative. It's also really good for something that's very structurally sound. And maybe you actually can't replace all your plywood, which I think would be the case for most of us. So there's a really good option. If you cannot replace plywood in your home, but you're wanting to kind of prevent some of those formaldehyde toxins, you can use AFM, Safe Seal Plywood Sealer. And I have that link in this week's blog post. I would highly recommend this. What it does is it works on plywood, particle board, other pressed woods, and it is like a paint-on application. It's clear. It seals in the VOCs and the formaldehyde so that they don't off-gas. It basically traps them inside. And then it also adds water and moisture protection to it, to most of the surfaces it's applied to, which means it blocks odor and other like things that can arise from moisture intrusion. So this is a really great option if you are wanting to seal in those VOCs. It's clear upon drying, and then it's odorless when it dries on as well. You can use a roller or a brush on plywood surfaces. So I encourage you to check that out if you are looking for a way to seal in formaldehyde and VOCs without replacing all of your plywood. So that's everything that is important to know about plywood when it comes to your home and your spaces. I think that a really good option is to seal up the plywood if you can. If you can't, that's okay. I mean, we can change other things in our home. It's not the end of the world if you have plywood in your home. A lot of us do, I would say most of us do. But knowing what these toxins are and knowing that maybe eventually you can change it, or if you're planning to move someday or do a remodel someday, you can make better choices. So those are just some of the things to keep in mind when it comes to plywood. If you're doing a remodel project or a furniture project or just anything in your home, choosing a safer, healthier option is going to be key to creating a healthy space. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@healthyhouseontheblock.com, or you can reach me on my social media channels. I'm more than happy to send you links or more information depending on what you need. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another video and another blog post all about creating a healthier home environment. See ya!